Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Tyler, and the reason why I didn't upload a few days ago is because my microphone decided to discombobulate literally mid-recording with MJ, but now we're back. Speaking of, MJ, go ahead and say what's up.
What's going on, man? And don't forget the other side of that story. I helped you record and my audio corrupted, so it just wasn't our day that day.
It just wasn't our day, but now today is our day, and today we are talking about Terry Silver versus Chozen. Now, what are your initial thoughts about this topic, MJ? Just in general, not about who wins, but specifically about the topic itself.
The topic is interesting because the tease towards season 5 with Chozen coming in to possibly help Daniel while Johnny's away with Miguel, that's a very interesting matchup, and I think people have been wanting to see this for years. Obviously, back in the day, it was more so Chozen versus Mike Barnes, the, I guess, quote-unquote, student of Terry, kind of, but now it's more so Terry versus Chozen as older men, now Chozen potentially being like this strong OP character, which you and I don't entirely agree with, and Terry being the main antagonist or villain of the series right now.
Yeah, and I also feel like it's kind of interesting because Terry Silver is looked at the guy who is, Kreese is the face of Cobra Kai, but Terry is the one playing the strings in the background. And he's basically the biggest menace in Cobra Kai, arguably, in my opinion. Meanwhile, Chozen is probably the biggest menace in Miyagi-Do.
No, I can definitely see that, especially when you go back to Chozen's past with Sato, the rivalry with Miyagi and everything. He's probably the most fearsome fighter out of Miyagi-Do.
Yeah, and speaking of, that's actually something I want to touch upon before we actually talk about this topic. The general consensus is that Chozen is somehow better than Miyagi or just peak Cobra Kai character, and that is not true.
So to elaborate on what Tyler is saying, if you go back to movie 2, there's like a big rivalry between Sato and Miyagi, and that seems to kind of cross over even in today in Cobra Kai, where people feel like Chozen because of the scrolls and because he knows everything that Miyagi-Do has to offer, at least that's implied, is that he's above Sato, which puts him around Miyagi level or like peak Cobra Kai character, and that's not really the case because we know for a fact that Miyagi was just way above Sato. Like, yes, Sato has been training, I guess, and preparing for whatever, but it's pretty much implied once he sees Miyagi break that gigantic board that was like thick as all heaven.
What do you mean by that?
And he was just like, wow. I really am nothing compared to this guy. So, and that was the narrative there. So even if Chozen is above Sato, which if you want to say that's fine, that's a completely different video, that doesn't mean that he's Miyagi level, and that doesn't mean he's going to be slapping around Terry, Kreese, and anybody around that level like Miyagi used to in the Cobra Kai films.
That's what I'm saying, bro. And they think because he has access to literally everything Sato and Miyagi have, which took them literal decades to master, he has access to all of this somehow in a few years.
Yeah, plus, I mean, you brought this up off air, and that's the fact that Daniel season 3 was like able to kind of tag him here and there, so it's...
Yeah, like, even if this so-called Miyagi master, right, like, oh wow, he got the pressure points. Bro, he had to rely on the pressure points against Daniel in the sparring, and even beforehand, Daniel was in there. You can't say that Daniel isn't at least somewhat comparable to Chozen in skill. Like, you can't just say Chozen one-shots him instantly. That's not true.
Right, and why don't you talk about what happens with Daniel post season 3 with the pressure point training and how that was sort of useless against a certain rival of his.
Oh yeah, Johnny Lawrence, who quite literally won that same instance that Daniel got the pressure points off. Johnny scored a point, and mind you, this is the same Johnny that Terry beat the bricks out of. Yes, Johnny did get off guarded initially, but we see Johnny literally recover from this and then proceed to off-guard Terry, and Terry's just completely unfazed. The entire encounter, Terry is literally like trolling Johnny. He's laughing. He's like, come on, let's see your defense. And then he just proceeds to get pooped on.
At one point, Terry put his hands down and just kind of let Johnny like do his thing. Now, I do want to talk about this real quick. I'm not gonna grandstand and say that Terry is above Kreese because I don't necessarily think that's the case. But what is interesting as seems to be somewhat of a narrative that even though Kreese, like back in the day, was the Vietnam hero, he was the war hero, he was like this badass dude, and that Terry was the guy like pissing in the cage. That isn't the narrative now. And what I mean by that is even in Karate Kid Film 3, Terry witnesses Barnes and Kreese getting like completely like slapped, and yet he still thinks he can take on Miyagi. Now granted, it was explained that he was all coked up and he was like on cloud nine for most of that movie, so you could just say that was his reasoning, is that he was just so hyped, he was ready to fight.
Yeah, it might have just been overconfidence. You can make a case for him at the very least being relative. I don't think that's like out of the blue. Like, I don't think that's like a bizarre claim.
Yes, and my whole point with that is if he's at that level, then we know for a fact that Chozen is probably gonna have trouble with him, because I think the whole point that Tyler and I are trying to make with this video is that do not expect Chozen to show up and just like throw Terry around and just like start one-tapping him, you know?
Yeah, like what Daniel did to Kreese, do not expect that. Please do not. And we need to make this very clear. Season 4 has made this clear, but I just want to make it very clear in this video. It seems like having pressure points in Cobra Kai isn't really like a massive amp that you would think it is. Like, it really doesn't amp your speed or power or anything. It just like makes your arm a little numb, which even Johnny could counter. And he's never experienced this before, mind you.
Yeah, so even if Chozen is able to land pressure point hits on Terry, it's not gonna be the be-all end-all of that fight, because even though Terry is, I guess, I don't even want to say he's rusty, but I guess it is confirmed that he hasn't been training in martial arts that long, or in karate that long. Even if you do believe that he's rusty, the fact that Johnny was able to shake it off mid-fight with like no problem, and the fact that Terry seemed to look down upon Johnny's skill, I'm pretty sure that wouldn't really affect Terry whatsoever. And I do want to bring this up because Tyler and I have talked about this before. When you are a fighter, and this goes in real life too, if you're not mentally prepared or mentally capable, we do know for a fact that that does hinder you and that drops you by a little bit. And what I'm referring to is Kreese. Just because what Daniel did to Kreese was just in a heated fight with Johnny, and not just a heated fight physically, but a heated fight mentally. Everyone in that fight was mentally torn, and Daniel was like the enlightened one who just came back from Okinawa to come in and just kind of like drop those pressure points on Kreese. Like even Kreese, before he got put back into the turmoil of Johnny and Cobra Kai and everything, he still made it with Johnny in season 2. And we know since then he's been training Kreese, mind you. So Kreese was definitely mentally handicapped when Daniel took him out as quick as he did with the pressure points.
And not to mention, on top of that, Johnny was beating the bricks out of Kreese. I mean, Kreese definitely got some good hits in, but it really wasn't fair. Our conclusion is, well, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but we think Chozen gets body slammed. Chozen is very strong, don't get me wrong, but he's, 1, not the strongest in Miyagi-Do, and 2, not the strongest character currently in Cobra Kai.
I agree. I hope Mike Barnes shows up and one-taps him, but that's just whatever.
Oh, I forgot. He's going to be the strongest soon, and then Chozen's just going to have to fight for third, bro. And with that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is our conclusion on the topic of Terry Silver versus Chozen. Now, I know other people have made topics on this, and I've even gotten, jumped on Discord over this topic. But if you guys want to actually have a one-on-one conversation with me personally, you guys can join the Discord, link in the description, because I really don't have time for comment YouTube debates. It's so annoying and it takes so long. And with that being said, be sure to go and subscribe to MJ. I'll be leaving that in the description as well. We have a collab video, shameless plug, as well on his channel you guys can go check out.
Make sure to subscribe to both their channels if you want Chozen to get one-tapped by anybody in the show. Dimitri, take care of our boy. Anyways, we'll talk to y'all later.